In the summer of 1954, a nation broken by war and buried in shame looked to 11 men in muddy boots to find their souls again. What happened over 90 minutes in the rain of Bern wasn't just a football match. It was the moment a country was reborn. Post-war Germany was a land of silence, rubble, and heavy hearts. It was 1954, and the scars of World War II were everywhere, not just in the architecture, but also in the psyche of the people. Germany was a pariah on the global stage, excluded from the 1950 World Cup, and struggling to find an identity untethered to its darkest chapter. For the German people, football wasn't just a game. It was the only place where they could still feel a sense of belonging without the weight of politics. But even there, they were the underdogs. No one expected anything from the West German team. They were a collection of semi-professionals, coached by Sepp Herberger, a man they called the Fox, for his tactical cunning and his ability to see 3 moves ahead of everyone else. At the heart of this team was Fritz Walter. To understand the Miracle of Bern, you have to understand Fritz. Before he was a national icon, Fritz Walter was a man who had seen the very worst of humanity. A genius on the pitch for Kaiserslautern, his career was brutally interrupted when he was drafted as a paratrooper during the war. By 1945, he found himself in a Soviet-run prisoner of war camp in Ukraine, starving and waiting for a train that would take him deep into the Siberian gulags. His life was saved by a single moment of recognition. During a casual kickabout with guards, a Hungarian soldier noticed his touch and realized this wasn't just another prisoner. It was the captain of the German national team. The guard lied to the Soviet officers, claiming Fritz was an Austrian forced into service, and spared him from the death sentence of the labor camps. He returned to Germany a broken man, plagued by malaria and the crushing anxiety of the survivor. To the public, he was a hero. To himself, he was a man living on borrowed time, carrying the trauma of millions into the reign of Bern. While Germany was rebuilding from the ashes, Hungary was building a masterpiece. The mighty Magyars were, without hyperbole, the greatest football team the world had ever seen. Led by Ferenc Puskás, the galloping major, and supported by brilliance like Coxis and Hidecuti, they were undefeated in 31 consecutive matches. They didn't just win, they dismantled opponents. In 1953, they went to Wembley and crushed England 6-3, then beat them again 7-1 in Budapest. They played a brand of fluid, attacking football that was decades ahead of its time. By the time they reached the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland, the trophy was considered their property before the first whistle even blew. The group stage meeting between West Germany and Hungary seemed to confirm this. Hungary humiliated the Germans 8-3. The German public was embarrassed, but Sepp Herberger had a secret. He had intentionally fielded a B team to keep his starters fresh and to lure the Hungarians into a false sense of security. He was willing to lose the battle to win the war. July 4, 1954, the Wankdorf Stadium in Bern. The atmosphere was thick with tension and humidity, but as the afternoon progressed, the clouds turned a bruised purple. A heavy, relentless rain began to fall. In the German dressing room, the mood shifted. Fritz Walter suffered from a form of malaria he'd contracted during the war, which made it difficult for him to play in extreme heat. He thrived in the cold and the wet. As the rain poured down, Herberger leaned over to his captain and whispered, "Fritz, your weather." There was another secret weapon. Adi Dassler, the founder of Adidas, was with the team. He had developed a revolutionary new boot with screw-in studs. While the Hungarians were slipping and sliding on the turning mud of the pitch in their traditional heavy boots, the Germans could change their studs to grip the earth. Science was meeting spirit on the field. The match started exactly as the world expected. Within 6 minutes, Puskás, playing on a legendary 1.5 legs due to a hairline fracture, pounced on a deflected shot to make it 1-0. 2 minutes later, a defensive error allowed Cibor to make it 2-0. The fans settled in for a massacre, but the Germans didn't break. In the 10th minute, Max Morlock slid into a cross, poking the ball past the Hungarian keeper. 2-1. Suddenly, the Invincibles looked human. 8 minutes later, a corner from Fritz Walter sailed through the rain. Helmut Rahn, a man who wasn't even supposed to be in the starting lineup weeks earlier, was waiting at the back post. He hammered it home. 2-2. The stadium went into collective shock. For the next hour, it was a siege. The Hungarians hit the woodwork 3 times. Tony Turek, the German keeper, made saves that defied the laws of physics. The commentator Herbert Zimmermann, losing his professional composure, shouted into his microphone, "Turek, you are a football god." The 84th minute. The mud was deep and lungs were burning. A Hungarian cross was headed out by the German defense, landing perfectly at the feet of Helmut Rahn on the edge of the box. Zimmermann's radio commentary became the soundtrack of a nation's rebirth. Rahn has to shoot from the background. Rahn shoots. Goal, 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 goal for Germany. The ball had stayed low, skidding across the slick grass and into the bottom left corner. For the first time in the tournament, Hungary was trailing. They threw everything forward. Puskás scored in the final minute, but the linesman's flag was up. Offside. When the final whistle blew, the West German players fell into the mud, not out of exhaustion but in disbelief. They had beaten the unbeatable. While Germany was celebrating its rebirth, Hungary was descending into a dark, suffocating silence. For the mighty Magyars, losing the final wasn't just a sporting failure. In the eyes of the Hungarian communist regime, it was a political embarrassment. When the team returned to Budapest, there were no parades. Instead, they were met with whispers of treason. The legendary goalkeeper Gyula Grosic, who had been nearly unbeatable for years, was arrested on trumped-up charges of espionage and treason. He was forced into internal exile, playing for a provincial club, his career and spirit systematically dismantled by the state. The fans, once their biggest supporters, turned on them, fueled by rumors that the players had sold the game to the Germans in exchange for Mercedes-Benz cars. But the true end of the Golden Team didn't happen on a football pitch. It happened in the streets. In 1956, 2 years after the Miracle of Bern, the Hungarian Revolution erupted. As Soviet tanks rolled into Budapest to crush the uprising, the national team was abroad. The players were faced with an impossible choice: return to a country under occupation or leave their lives behind forever. The team splintered. Ferenc Puskás, Sándor Kocsis, and Zoltán Cibor chose exile. Puskás, the heart of Hungarian football, was branded a traitor by his own government and sentenced to death in absentia. He wouldn't return to his homeland for 25 years. The greatest collection of footballing talent the world had ever seen was erased from the history books of their own nation. The Miracle of Bern was more than a sporting upset. For the people back home, listening on crackling radios in the ruins of Berlin, Frankfurt, and Munich, it was the first time they felt they could hold their heads up high. Fritz Walter, the man who had almost died in a prisoner of war camp, was carried off on the shoulders of his teammates. He didn't just carry a trophy, he carried the hope of a country. Historians often say that West Germany was founded 3 times. Politically in 1948 with the currency reform, legally in 1949 with the Constitution, and emotionally on July 4th, 1954. The Miracle of Bern gave Germany a future, but it robbed Hungary of its past. The Golden Team became a ghost story, a reminder of what could have been if the rain hadn't fallen in Bern. It taught a broken generation that through work, innovation, and a little bit of Fritz Walter weather, anything was possible. The Miracle of Bern is often called the true birth of modern Germany. Do you think a single sporting event can really change the soul of a nation, or was this just a perfect storm of timing and luck? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into football's most emotional moments, make sure to check out the links in the description and download your free ebook.